Right now, the people have to be led out of Egypt. Just like Moses led the people into the promised land, there's another exodus from error into truth, from Babylon into the promised land. So let's get started on our journey. Verse 9, that great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him, costing the eternal life of fallen angels. Now, how did he do that? Well, obviously, he had to use his bright and intelligent mind to actually try to diffuse a spirit of maybe starting with curiosity, maybe it's a little bit of discontent among the angels. He had to work in a mysterious way. So, in the appearance for reverence for the Creator, he could have been just saying, well, maybe I think that we have, being so honored his word would have been trusted, he could have said, I have some good ideas. I have some ideas. And why is it that the Father and the Son, why does everyone have to pay homage to the Prince? I mean, aren't we also equal? Somehow he started to artfully instill his own dissatisfactions in the mind of these angels, wouldn't you think? So he can persuade them to his side, and then eventually to the point where they would have to be cast out of heaven like he is. I should believe that in the beginning and before the fall, the law, now I'm going to say something that's going to sound strange, but I don't believe there was a law. There was a law, but there wasn't in the minds of the people. It was automatic. So when it was brought up by Lucifer, it almost came as an awakening that there even was a law. And the law, even though it wasn't recognized as a law, they were already keeping it. They were already just kind of living that way. And then Lucifer's yes said, yeah, well, the way we live and all this is like a law, Bringing up this idea that the way they did, their conduct was under law. But I'm just wondering if Lucifer didn't somehow go forth to maybe dispute this law the kind of same way that they do down here on the earth, and explain it in such a way that it kind of minimizes its forcefulness. Maybe something like that. I realize I've been talking lots about things that you probably never heard before, like bringing up just the idea that there was a law in heaven. This is what Lucifer disputed. This is one of his arguments was that we were under rule under law, which was really just like these trees. They're not going to argue. The moon up there in the sky, it's not going to argue that it's under a law. It's a harmonious system. Everything, even the ants below my feet, somewhere are contributing to nature, like the bees and the flowers. They all everything works together. And so these are fixed laws in nature, in society, and in the worlds above there were laws, and I'm proposing that these were 10 commandments. Not that the 10 commandments existed up there before the fall of man or before the fall of Lucifer, but more than likely they were posted probably on a very big table of stone. After the jealousy came in, he was reminded, okay, Lucifer, this is the rule of conduct. If you can sum it up and say 10 ideas, and then, which was before 4 towards the Creator and 6 towards man. Imagine walking into a real special village, and nobody in this village has ever offended another or their Creator. There was never ever any lying or stealing or cheating, coveting one another's goods, no killing. You would know that they're living in harmony with one another. It doesn't matter if it was called a law or whatever it was called. There was a rule of conduct within their system of living in harmony with one another. Now, the point I was making was that within this system of operating, which was harmonious and it was the only system they had, Lucifer used this to bring up this idea this was rule of conduct was something that was actually restricting their liberty, called a law. The reason why I'm bringing up this law so much and presenting that this law of life, this happy rule of conduct, existed before even Earth was created, was because it's simply a law of life. All intelligence need to have a law of love, which would mean giving to one another and not taking from one another. That's simple, a simple concept. So how could the Ten Commandments not have existed before Earth was created? So now I'm saying that this was the first law, the law that was always holy and good and just. And Paul said we established this law, and they were under this law. Now, when man became fallen in his nature, and now in need of hope from the grave and the power of God's resurrection through his mercy, there was another law, a second law, a second system of laws. So the first law would have been the law of life, the law of love. Don't steal, don't lie, honor God. And then the second system of laws was, oh, you boo-booed. Now you have to do these, perform these laws, conform to these laws. The sacrificial offerings and ceremonies to remind you of your sin and also point to the solution, if that makes sense. So the second set of laws was to remind man. They were temporary laws. They were laws of remedy to fix his problem and bring in a solution. So these laws were centered around the slaying of animals that pointed to the actual slaying of his own son. But once the son had completed his work on the Calvary's cross, or the nail to the tree that day, then the offering of animals had ceased to exist. The priesthood was now transferred to the original owner and back to the temple in the heavens above. So that makes sense. So now the second system of laws was basically pointing to the first law, that it was so holy, so important, it cost the life of the transgressor, and the only one that could atone for it would be this spotless Son of the Most High God himself that could pay that. So by faith in this atonement, man would have to honor these second laws. And by faith, he would perform the actions and the ceremonies. Now that Christ had died that day, it's faith in his atoning blood. But their eyes are always on the mercy seat in the temple of old, and also in today we still look into the heavens for mercy. Now we're going to talk a lot more about this later, but I wanted to bring up this idea of why am I going into this law so much? Because we want to know what's binding for us today. So the last thought I'll bring in this little add-in was, Paul went on to say, let us keep the feasts of unleavened bread. So how do you do that without this second system of laws? Maybe within the second system of laws, something remained. We're going to talk about that, but I just wanted to give you something to think about. We're going to come back to this. And then when Yeshua walked on the earth, he summed it up in two ideas: love towards God and love towards man. On all these hang all the laws, was basically the relationship between your Creator and the relationship with your neighbor. There's also a relationship with yourself, but if you have a relationship with your Creator and your God, and your fellow man, Everything's in harmony this way. Okay, so I'm just saying that these laws were in heaven. These laws, there was a law in heaven, whether it was posted before or after. It was the Ten Commandment law that I believe that he was making an argument of. Now, because this law was offended, it was broken, then there was a plan to redeem. Lucifer was probably warned, and they were trying to redeem his soul, to turn him back, but that failed, and so he was cast to the earth. And I'm going to show you how that looks like in a way that you've never seen before, I probably bet. Why did the Father allow the rebellion? So I'm saying that I'm believing that he got jealous of the Son. That's where it began. That why couldn't he go into this light? Something happened that one day. It was like, it was uncomfortable. He dismissed it, but it came back. And so here the rebellion's extended to the earth. Now, so I was saying that the dispute was the law in heaven, and that we had a king over us, a ruler. You know, why not? Why not have a ruler over us when he's so much more, 100 million ways greater than us? All right, okay. I think I said enough to introduce what I'm reiterating what I'm saying about Lucifer. He rebelled, and now that he's on the earth, and this book is written to people of the earth, you wouldn't think he's in the book, right? I have a friend that doesn't even believe the devil's real. He's just a metaphor. I mean, I used to think that many years ago, maybe Lucifer's actually not even a real being. He's just kind of like a description in this book somehow that somehow he's not real. I don't know. But no, he's very real. Now, okay, so that's enough of that, me talking again. And I'm going to get into this, turning the pages of this. I'm going to put my phone, the Bible down. This is the King James Bible. Any Bible is going to tell you pretty much the same story of what I'm going to show you right now in different ways. And there's different versions. So don't you let that be your excuse. Say, I'm not going to read that book because some people would say it's been changed. Well, there's enough left unchanged. Okay, so let's open this book. We'll put the book down and turn the pages. Saying, Wise kept talking about the law. We're no longer under the law. We're under grace now, right? All right, so yeah, we're going to talk about this. Give me an opportunity. There's two systems of laws we need to talk about. See, this says it was added. Where do we serve the law? It was added because of transgression till the seed should come to whom the promise was made. So there was a second system of laws that were added, and this was the law that would pass away. So we're going to take a look at, there's two systems of laws, but I can't get bogged down with this right now. But it's really, this book of Galatians, when you read it, really it'll explain to you that we're no longer under the law. For two reasons, we're no longer under the law of love, but yet it's established. We're going to see that this law is established, but we're no longer under its curse because of the sacrifice. But I just had the thought that perhaps they had the Ten Commandments in heaven, that Lucifer and all the bunch had those. And why I say that? Because in Genesis chapter 2, even before Adam was unfallen, God rested on his 6 days. He worked and he rested on the seventh. So what would be new? Why would he just do something new on the earth and the society of heaven not be bound by the same laws? So this is why I think that somehow that could have been a point of controversy that Lucifer was using. That maybe it's necessary for all other worlds. Maybe he said something like that. Maybe it's just not. Why should we, being top angels, have to be bound by something? I mean, yeah, the law is good and all that, but you know what I mean? Or however he explained it, I think he was like a politician offering something better. He must have had some way to trick them out of heaven. He could have said something too along the lines of, why is it that God, the one we serve, pours all his affections on his Son. And why is he so honored? And why have all our thoughts and everything, we have to worship him and bow down to him, and all the songs are about him? Are not we equal? Isn't this kind of like a little bit of an injustice to exalt his Son so highly? Aren't we just as honored? Aren't we also sons? Shouldn't we be reverenced? And maybe not other worlds or something, however, whatever, but somehow he inspired in their mind that there was something more. So I think that's, either way, we'll know more in the future about how he actually coveted and began to instill these same dissatisfactions in the minds of these angels, to the point where they start to feel that their own liberty was being maybe taken away. Because after all, now Lucifer's bringing out that there's an absolute ruler appointed over them. Well, maybe he didn't say it. He wouldn't say it like, we have a rule over us, because after all, they were in love with the great prince, and Lucifer was also a prince, a little lower. And so he would have said, it is true that we have a, if you think about it, we have a ruler. He's like a ruler. You think about it, he's a ruler over us, but I don't know. So he had to, he was just little bit by little bit, he was gonna make sure he took these angels with him. And if you weren't on his side, then you were not open for changes. He promised great changes. Now we can see that the whole universe, if Lucifer's doing what he's doing, because he is so well loved, so well honored, so trusted, his words were so respected. Imagine that, the chief covering agent, the top executive of heaven, says that I have some ideas how we can make this divine government just a little bit better. You don't think that would have went over? This is what went over. So in the actual way, he started to win the universe to his side, to say, well, maybe God was holding out on something. Just maybe. Maybe there was something more. Now, can you imagine if the Father had said, okay, let's stop this thing right now, and Lucifer, you're out of there. And all of a sudden there's Lucifer lying there dead before the universe, the first creature to actually have been destroyed, to die, and the first one to actually take his life would have been God. So God's the first killer, and the devil's the first one to die. Now how would that went over in the universe? So because God doesn't force the will, he takes no delight in forcing the will, he allows this controversy to continue on for a little bit. So now he's cunningly drawing his hearers on to his false accusations, his utterances, and his feelings. Then, blaming himself to be a perfect, loyal angel and only into loyalty to God, maybe he just earned some changes in the order of the divine government of heaven were necessary to bring even greater harmony to the courts of heaven. And meanwhile, he's working to excite opposition to the law of God, which would have came in as awakening until he brought up the idea. But he was going to instill his own discontent into the minds of these angels under him. Lucifer could lie, and the Creator could not. So he could go ahead and say that he was promoting loyalty and to preserve all the peace in the universe, but meanwhile, he was a liar. And more, he began to practice this art of lying. All right, I felt I needed to inject a thought here. Just bear with me on the rest of this a little bit more. We're going to talk about the art of Satan, the Lucifer behind his mind, how he worked to deceive the realm of the angels, but the universe was looking at this. This is a horrific thing that was going on. And so I want you to understand this, what happened up there. It's important. And then we'll understand, okay, that's why. You need a big enough reason why in our head to do battle down here on earth for your own soul. So I want to just remind all of us, Lucifer was a liar. He could lie. And the Creator could never lie. You see, this is what he had to his advantage. This is why he artfully could practice deception, and when the Creator could not. So he had the advantage of flattery, trickery. All that he did was closed in a mysterious way. It was all up front. It would look so good, but he was behind the scenes doing this baleful, artful work of, little by little, the universe began to question the benevolence of the Father, because Lucifer's ability to lie and cheat, and this Creator could not. So he had a huge advantage. Think of it. This top politician was promising, or maybe just urged, that some changes in the divine government were necessary. This divine government, I'm Lucifer, the light bringer. I've been here forever. And the Father and the Son, Michael, other angels were there. But however he did that, because after all, they are angels of the higher rank, shouldn't have to be bound by the law. Or not a law, but whatever. And they would say, well, what do you mean by this law? Like what? Well, he says, no, well, it's like a law when we're all, he's the king, he's the ruler. So, this is how, so then the idea of the law came as an awakening. Oh, there is a law. Well, yeah. And so, however he did it, the point is that I'm bringing up this idea that he was a trickster. However he did it, maybe not as important, the fact that he did it. 1/3 of the angels were cast out, which means those 2/3, wow, they were teetering on a heavy decision. So the universe could only have really said, wow, Lucifer has some good points there. So imagine that's why Lucifer could not be destroyed immediately. So this is why the rebellion had to continue. I'm going to shut the camera off. The locusts are loud. I'm trying to overtalk them. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit longer video than I thought. I thought it would be like 15 minutes to cover this idea of the background of before Earth was in the rebellion in heaven. I can see some people saying, well, is that really important? Yes, it is. This controversy that was in heaven basically is extended to our world. And we are the center of it. And all the universe is looking down at this controversy. And they know full well, I was going to say, they have your phone number. You're definitely being watched. If you're watching this video, you're in the considerations of the heaven above. It said the 1/3 of the stars shone not. 1/3 of the moon, 1/3 of the sun. That was the magnitude of this catastrophe in heaven. In one way, I'm reminded of this controversy that's going on the earth right now. Some people are for vaccines and some are not. And some people are for masks and some are not. So what is true and correct here? Because Lucifer, being this master intelligent being, first in line under the Son of God, he had them. The sun had a form. Out of the light came one that can communicate with all angels. So he had a form like Lucifer, like Gabriel and all the angels. And so Lucifer became jealous of the sun. That's the deal. Remember, he had a cunning mind, and so he was presenting a counterfeit, something that when he would talk about it, it almost would heighten. Wow, maybe there is something, because it is true that then we have this law. Not well, maybe there was something more, because after all, they were all subject to the king. Probably morning and noon, or morning and night, they would actually have a worship time, a gathering time with one another, and sing. And they would give glory to the Son of the Most High God. And so when Lucifer stood side by side with them, he says, well, why is he honored so much higher than me, right? Because after all, he was the chief covering cherub. So as Lucifer would have moved out of the spirit of harmony, then it would arouse this intensity in the mind of loyal angels, wondering what's all this about. And I kind of reminded myself, even when I was struggling with the idea of the law and grace and how that applied, and I was part of a church at one time where they had a doctrine, and they started changing it and back and forth. And I was on both sides at one time or another, and that's what actually sent me off weeping, that I was going to go and read for myself, and then I would come back and I would tell them. I wept because I felt it was my responsibility to learn this and then come back and share it. But when I approached the ministers, it was actually just a couple of years when I started to get a new position on the trumpets. And I went back to the ministers and I said, hey, this is what it says. And he says, well, we've always taught this. And I said, well, I've listened to you for 12 years. But he wouldn't even let me give me 12 minutes to hear what I had to say. So you think about how the Father, when his Son walked on the earth, and how he was so patient with people, and he bore very long with their humanity, let's just say. And like when Peter was sleeping with the bunch, he just had sleep on, he knew. And so you see the character of the Father. He would have been there for Lucifer and trying to win him back, trying to bring him around. But this went on and on, obviously, this battle in heaven. Michael and his angels fought, it says, with Lucifer and his angels. And so I don't think Lucifer really knew where he was drifting, actually to the lake of fire. Or maybe he would have thought more about what he was doing. But this was a strange mystery, strange indeed. Never before in heaven has anything like this ever happened before. All created beings with intelligence were now in this controversy. I'm looking at the Psalm in 145, 17 and 18. It says that the Lord is nigh unto all that call upon him, and call upon his name, and he will fulfill the desire of their hearts. So this tells me that Lucifer had an opportunity to repent and come back to his senses, right? So that's kind of an interesting thing. He would have been counseled, he would have been loved, and all of that, but no, he chose to rebel, and he did. It says that his pride rose up, so that must mean that he was convinced at one time that he was wrong. And so, because all these other intelligent beings, these were superior intelligent beings throughout the universe, although he was the highest, under the Son of the Most High and under the Father himself. So there's only two other beings higher than himself. And so that was high honor. It says we are to forgive your neighbors 70 times 7. So I imagine that law that was given on the earth, or that was command to forgive 70 times 7, that it came from heaven. So Lucifer would have had that same opportunity. Here he was in heaven. He wasn't cast to the earth. He could have spared his own life, but not just himself. 1/3 of the angels were cast out. How many angels are there on the earth? Fallen angels? Thousands, millions? It's not revealed. But it says 10,000 times 10,000s and thousands of angels around the throne in Revelation chapter 5, verse 11. And so, and also when we see that in Daniel, I think it's chapter 7 or 8, 7. You know, we see in the controversy that Lucifer is given time. He had to have time for his plans to be fully developed, so his own plans would condemn him before the universe. And so we see in the book of Revelation chapter 20 that he's locked up for 1,000 years. He's put in prison and he's under penalty. And so after the 1,000-year sentence is served, you know, when people serve time, often it makes them penitent, and they're given probation, even an early sentence, and they're rehabilitated. But not Lucifer. He continues to rebel again. He gathers, rather than, you know, coming to his senses after all the time, so you got the idea. So we see that the honor, I guess why I'm bringing up this 1,000-year idea was we can see that Lucifer was given time that he could have always, the Father's so patient, obviously so patient. Not only was he given opportunity to prove his accusations were false, and so the Father in his wisdom knew that the universe needed time to see this, so that idea of Lucifer's ideas would be proven by themselves disastrous, to say the least. But I think the Father was, you know, not just about giving him time, but it was also about trying to win him back from the abyss that he was going. He was going into a lake of fire, and he was going to take his followers with him. Verse 14, thou art the anointed cherub that covereth. Verse 18, thou hast defiled thy sanctuaries by the multitude of thy iniquities, by the iniquity of thy traffic. Therefore I will bring forth fire from the midst of thee, shall devour thee, and I will bring thee to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all them that behold thee. See. So, he's brought to ashes. Now that's good, because if Lucifer was to burn on forever and ever and ever and ever in torment and suffering, that would make God worse than the devil. Right? How would you actually willing to lovingly throw your arms around a father like that when you knew some of your friends that have never made it, that are there in eternity, burning and twisting, and you know, even the worst man in all the world, the meanest man in all the world, after a while would get tired with that game and just stamp out your life. But no, not God. He's going to burn you and torment you forever. Obviously, that's a misunderstanding. Just thinking about how Lucifer, what actually he would have been thinking in his mind. Do we do that to say? Are we the same way? That somehow we fall into this denial, thinking because we know God is love, we know our Father, Heavenly Father, is so loving in His character, and maybe because of that gentle side of the Father, Lucifer maybe thought he can get away with things. And maybe we're the same way. We think, well, you know, God is love, He'll understand, and there's always room for repentance. But no, after the heart can get hard and it can become impossible. And every time we fall, it makes the next failure all the easier. And every victory prepares the way for a fresh new victory. So we want to take hold of every opportunity we can. We don't want to parley with evil and temptation at all. So obviously he was having some kind of stinking thinking. He couldn't see clear. The ways of men are right in their own eyes. We see the majority of them end in death, and Lucifer, he was definitely insane. Definitely insane. But because he was so well honored and loved, his this battle continues on the earth today. Telling him that he basically didn't want to be a legalist because they were under the law, right? Something like that. I don't know the presentation he used, but he definitely used something. His cunning mind was using something. And basically, when you see, I'm bringing you the story now. The Son was there with the Father. He was jealous of the Son. There was no law until Lucifer brought it up. Oh, yeah, well, this is the law of conduct. There's probably a tables that was posted, but maybe they never looked at them because it was just so automatic, their conduct and love for God and one another. Lucifer was given guardianship over these angels. They were in his care, but now he would cost them their eternal life, and they would suffer 1,000 years in a cold, dark prison with them and be destroyed. Okay, I want to show you something unique about the battle from heaven extended to the earth. In the book of Revelations, chapter 8, John sees the seventh seal opening the first trumpet. The 7 trumpets are 7 successive pieces of information to tell us the same thing. Now, what I'm proposing here, that Revelation chapter 8 talks about judging angels and will also judge the people of the earth. This sanctuary serves both purposes. In the 5th verse here, we can see an angel took a censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it to the earth. Now, only the high priest held the censer. And so this is a work of judgment to judge the people of the earth. We can see angels likewise are judged. And this angel here, what John saw as an angel, it looked like an angel in the vision, but it was none other than the Son of the Most High, because only a high priest in heaven could be none other than the Son. All right, so now this tells us there's a work of the sanctuary in heaven because of we're going to see that here and there a little bit, but first we can see the censer and the incense. The prayers of the saints is sent up before the Mighty One. Now, these could have been angels, these cast out demons. Angels were greatly loved, though fallen. But we can see the work of judgment on the earth, but indicating, yes, it started in heaven with the angels. So, in verse 5, this is the story. The angel took the censer, filled it with fire of the altar, cast it to the earth, and there were voices. Now, I'm proposing that these are the voices of angels. And when we see thunder and lightning in an earthquake, it's always synonymous, thunder and lightning, for judgment. If you look at it, now, the 7th angels, which had the 7 trumpets, prepared themselves to sound. Now, what they're going to just tell you in the first 4 trumpets, it's not about trouble on the earth the way it all looks like. In part, yes. But I'm going to tell you the true story of the trumpets as I see it. In verse 5, the angel took the censer and filled it with fire and cast it to the earth. So this is the great event. Now, to explain this event of verse 5, we'll take the next 4 trumpets. The first 4 trumpets. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, the life blood of angels, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of the trees, they're called trees here, the angels was burnt up. Eventually they will be burnt up in the fire. Burnt up. And all the green grass, the people of the earth, was burnt up. Because what happens, they're cast from heaven, and there's a catastrophe up there, and it's extended to the earth. So here, they were cast to the earth, the third part of the angels of heaven, and all the green grass, all the peoples of the earth, our planet, are burnt up. Oh, some are saved. But we're going to be on the saved side. Now the second angel sounded, and there was a great mountain, this is Satan, burning with fire, and was cast into the sea of earth. And the third part of the sea became blood, the third part of the sea of heaven, just like the third part of the trees. I know you're going to say, oh, you're making something up. You tell me a better indication of what's going on here. In Psalm 1, we see, blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, and blessed is the angel that walk not in the counsel of the ungodly, namely Satan. But here it is, the delight in the law of the Almighty. His law do they meditate day and night. It's so important that here they're like trees planted by the rivers of water that bring forth their fruit. You see, the point is I'm bringing up, they're likened to trees, right? Planted by the rivers and the waters. But these trees in heaven, I'm showing you, 1/3 of the trees of heaven were burnt up. They were not planted by the water. Well, let me say that they were planted by the water, but they were deceived, and their minds were slowly corrupted and turned away. So we don't want to be like that. We don't want to be burnt up chaff, which is driven away. And the ungodly shall not stand in judgment, and we saw neither did the angels, because according to Revelation chapter 8, verse 5, we saw that censer was there, and the angels were cast to the earth. So let's go back there then. Now follow this. Now this is a third secret in the third trumpet to tell you what just happened in verse 5. They were cast to the earth. A third part of the creatures which were in the sea of heaven and had life died. Well, not yet. They're still active, but they will die. And a third part of the ships. An angel here is called a ship. Look it up. Be synonymous with this search. Ships can mean an angel, because the third part of the ships were destroyed. Do you actually think it's talking about a boat? You can't have 1/3 of the boats go down and 2/3 of the boats are sitting in the harbor. When there's a storm, they all go down. So this is not referring to actual boats, it's angels. The third angel sounded, and there fell from a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, the part of the angels, and upon the fountains of waters. So just like all the green grass and all the fountains of waters and all the trees of the earth. So let me just take a look at this great star. Revelation chapter 12 is a little bit over, and his tail drew a third part of the stars. See, the angels here are called stars, and he was the first star, and cast them to the earth, right? They were cast to the earth. In Job 38:7, we see the angels are called morning stars here, and they're also called sons of God. And so we see Lucifer was a morning star cast to the earth. And the great dragon was cast out, that serpent, and Satan deceived, and the angels were cast out with him. So that's what I'm telling you. That's what the trumpets tell us. And I know you probably thought they were troubles on the earth, but there's that star from heaven burning as with a lamp, because you know what? That's like the waters. The Bible is a lamp. You know, the 10 virgins have lamps. Not all of them are lit, though. 5 of them, they're all sleeping, and they all have to wake up to this message of the bridegroom. And if they're wise enough, they'll see. Okay, so now, here it is again. The name of the star is called Wormwood, Satan, and the third part of the waters became wormwood. He deceived the third part of the angels, and many men died. The men of the earth died. Most people on this earth. Broad is the way that leads to destruction, and narrow is the way that leads to life. Many, the majority, many are called, but only few are chosen. Why? Because the waters are bitter. The teachings. Now the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars. So the third part of them was darkened. Now can you imagine when all these angels were cast out of heaven? What a great catastrophe this was. What an interruption of heaven, that there should be called and likened to sun, moon, and stars. These angels were likened to the sun, the moon, and the stars. How valuable is the sun to us on our earth? We're going to look at the sun and the earth, because we're going to see over here, when they're cast upon the earth, not just the third part of the sun, but the entire sun of the earth is darkened. All the green grass is burnt up. Okay, so let's back it up here again. Now we're going to just finish this thought. Yes, there it is. So the third part of them was darkened, and the third person shone not for a third part of it in the night likewise. So that was the magnitude of this catastrophe in heaven. And I beheld and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven saying, woe, 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 now to the inhabitants of the earth. So now this is more fully going to be directed to you, what's going on, because the world is demonized. We can see that here. So then when we start looking, this star was given to the key to the bottomless pit. Lucifer was given the key to earth. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there rose smoke out of the pit. You know, it says, remember the third of the sun. But here, the great furnace, sun and the air were darkened, not just a third, but planet Earth. Boy, oh boy. And 1/3 of heaven. And there came out of the smoke locusts, demons upon the earth, and to them was given power to scourge man. And it was commanded that they should not hurt the grass, the people of the earth, or any great thing, the people, or any tree, the people of the earth, but only these men, the people which have not the seal of God. So they can torment them for a while. This idea of the 5 months, torment for 5 months, I'd like to cover that in later topics, what that 5 months means, if I may share that. But in the locusts were like horses. So this is the first group of locusts. This is Satan. You can read this yourself. I'm not going to take the time here because I want to share this trumpets for another independent talk. But the locusts, maybe I can cover it because it's a quick study. The faces of men, the angels are called men here. Their breastplates are like iron. And look at them. They run to battle. And he had a king over them. The king of the bottomless pit. Remember, he was just cast to the bottomless pit. And he has the key of it. And that's him. And who is he? His name is the devil. Abaddon. Apollyon. Okay, so that's one more secret. That's the fifth secret to the earth. Woe, woe, woe. One woe is past. And behold, 2 more woes to the earth. So that's the fifth woe together. Okay, the sixth angel sounded. And there fell. Let me just see. Look at this. This is interesting. Heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar. Where's the 4 horns of the golden altar? We're seeing the sanctuary again. We're seeing heavenly services. And loose the 4 angels. Which in 4, so these are the angels of heaven. We can look at them. You can look at the war. We'll look at the war another time. They were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year for to slay a third part of men. Now, you're going to think just talking about man, but I can show you in Isaiah. It says, is this the man that made the earth to tremble? Satan's called a man in Isaiah 14. A third part of the trees, the rivers, the stars, the ships, they're called men here. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000 and thousands, and I heard the number of them. So this is a pretty good idea how big this army of heaven is. That's going to slay the angels. Okay, I decided to add a little bit more to this. Continuing on with, see, the first, see, out of the smoke come locusts. I'm saying that these are demons. And they had the faces of men. More like, because when an angel is fallen, it's likened to a man. Because they lose their kind of like power in a way. But this is just, if you give me this. For a moment, okay, so they had breastplates of iron. And chariots and horses riding to battle. So I'm saying that this is Lucifer and his army. Okay, I mentioned this hurt men 5 months. The only time in the Earth's history is the time after the first resurrection. They're gone, and then the second resurrection, they cannot die until they're destroyed in the final destruction. There's only one time in Earth's history man cannot die. But other than that, I can't see any explanation for that. But here, getting into context, they had, these are the demons, the king over them is sinner than the devil. We talked about that, but I wanted to bring up this point here, that these angels here, the second set of angels, they come from the altar of heaven, from the four horns of the golden altar, sent from heaven, and from to slay a third part of man. Well, I can show you many places that basically they're all destroyed. Well, let's take a look right now. He said the third part of men is the third part of the angels. Okay, so in Revelation 16, verse 3, it says the second angel poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as the blood of a dead man, and every living soul died in the sea. See, animals don't have souls. We're talking about spiritual warfare here anyways. Every living soul died. So that's why I'm saying every living soul died on planet Earth except the ones who are redeemed. So that's why when it says over here, to say a third part of man, it could only mean that, referring to, because the third part is the angels. We see the third over and over and over. But here's the point. I'll close it up after I tell you this. The number of the horsemen is 200,000, and I heard the number of them. Remember Revelation 5:11, there's that hundreds of thousands of number again. So here in this, they have breastplates of fire and jason and brimstone. That's much stronger than iron. And more warlike. And they don't just have, and the issue is fire, smoke, and brimstone. So you can see this is the war between those two groups of angels that we see over here in Revelation chapter 12, verse 7. And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels. And they prevailed not, and there was place no found, so that's why they were cast to the earth. So that's what we just looked at right now. They were cast to the earth. It just told us that all through trumpets. Okay. I'm looking forward to going through this on a more detailed, just focus on the revelations all by themselves. I have a great friend who's been asking me for that. Okay, so that's that. I thought I had another thought here. So by these three, let's just finish it. So the other ones had lion's hair. They have heads of lion, and out of their mouth, yes, and you can see that's who they are. But by these three was the third part of men killed, the fire and the smoke and the brimstone. And by the smoke and the brimstone, which proceeds out of their mouth. And the rest of men, now this is the people of the earth, not a third, but the rest of them, all the grass. Remember, so you're kind of referring to heaven and then earth. And the first four trumpets is always what happened then, extended to the earth. But we're not killed by these plagues. In other words, the reading of this revelation did not convince you, and repented not of your works, that they should not worship these demons that we just saw, because we're demonized in this world. All right, I'm turning on this camera again because I had to shut it off yesterday afternoon. The locusts were so loud. And now you get to hear the sounds of the morning jungle here in Costa Rica. And by the way, you're invited here. All right, so I hope you're beginning to see the idea of why the loving Creator had to absolutely allow this rebellion. Lucifer, he was so well loved, so trusted and honored, and he could lie. He was a liar and a cheater. And this is why he was, I said, he was loved, and he would have been missed had he been immediately destroyed. If infinite justice destroyed Satan, he would have been the first one to die in the universe. Consider that. And then the first killer would have been God. How would that went over? It wouldn't have. So all the universe only could have honored the Creator through fear and not through love, because of they didn't understand this rebellion. So for that reason, this had to continue for a while. The book of Isaiah opens with, "Listen, O heaven, and all earth, give ear, O earth," because it's for the worlds above. How Lucifer's ability to deceive was very strong. He was very cunning, and that's why he actually had other intelligent creatures actually questioning the benevolence of the Father, because he so artfully instilled his dissatisfactions, I mentioned that earlier, into the minds of these other creatures. By the first thing that happened was he was jealous of the sun, and then used the idea that he was kind of like a ruler, and we're really all bowing down to him when you think about it. Morning and night, we bow down to the prince. Isn't that kind of like taking away our liberty, that because we're so independent, we're all independent beings, why are we highly honoring this one? I think I went over that. I don't want to repeat myself that way. But he was so cunning that now he must be given time. His own work must condemn him, and he must be unmasked before the universe, and it's for the good of the universe, that to show that his claims were false. And in all of this, it would put the universe in a much more secure place in the future. For anyone who would want to rebel, think about rebel, could look back at the history of our little world and what's going on in this world down below here. You know, a lot of people are enjoying a lot of their lives, and they have all kinds of plans going on in this community. All around me, I see people planning this and for doing that. But they're all in for a surprise, because there's only one plan that's going to go through, and that's the plan of the Almighty. And we're going to see that in doing battle with the Son of the Most High and warring with the divine government, you're going to be basically in trouble. And so when it says Michael and his angels fought against Lucifer, Satan, and his angels, and who wins? Satan's a loser, and Michael wins the battle. Michael wins the battle, and we see that the Mighty One is just, his laws are fair, his ways are love, and the past and the future is spread out for anybody who wants to see it. It's the history we can see, and also will repeat itself from heaven. The war was about, well, why should we have to bow down to this, have a ruler over us? Just like today, people don't want to have a ruler over us. Cain killed Abel because he didn't want to acknowledge the idea that you needed to come before the altar and acknowledge the blood of the Most High. In other words, yeah, they always acknowledged that system of sacrifice, that the Messiah would come in their stead and do what he did. And so it was always looking forward to the plan of redemption. And so I think I said enough about all of this. love is being magnified in the universe. We can see that when the prince stepped out of heaven, he was loved. And when he returned, he's more loved. His stature is different. He doesn't have that same height and beauty. He's a human being. He returned as a Jew to the throne of the universe. What a picture that is. And any final thoughts? I think because the universe is so big and so vast that the universe had to see this. They had to see this. And why? So the rebellion would never ever rise up again. It was shocking for a time and hard to endure. But in all of this, we see that God is, the Creator is love. He's magnified. He's not the author of this confusion. He didn't start the battle. There was a pleading with Lucifer to not do what he did, and to not the way he worked. It says he cost the life of angels, and not only that, but it says all the green grass of the earth is burned up. You know, the majority of the people on this planet do not make it. And so this will be a perpetual testimony to the nature of sin and rebellion for all the universe. And it puts the universe in a secure place, because you see what a terrible result of taking your will into your own hands. That's what Adam did. He didn't trust the Maker's word, and so this is the result. God says, this is the way, walk in it. God is to be worshipped. He wants you morning and evening. That's the way it used to be. In the morning you rise and you realize, wow, there's life, there's a Creator, and He wants to be a part of you. He wants you in His life. And and so it's arising in the morning with prayer and retiring with prayer. We can see that the one who rules the heavens, who set the sun and the moon and the stars in motion, He knows the beginning from the end. And for any who want the truth of the future and the past is revealed, those that can see that the rebellion in heaven in some ways will be repeated on the earth. History is repeated. The past has lessons for us in the future. It says, the vision of Isaiah in chapter 1, verse 1, verse 2, it says, hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for Yah has spoken. It's for the heavens and the earth. Even heaven is listening to this message. They're watching you. All right, so next talk, we're talking about creation. We're going to talk about creation of the planet, but mainly man, made in His image. And so please join me on this. This is a really exciting video coming up. It gets more exciting and sobering. Thank you for watching. This is Kippy in Costa Rica. You're invited here. This is a safe zone. A lot of food and water here. It's a good place to, as long as the lines stay up, to carry the message into all the world. Peace. They have your phone number, but they want you to call first. Stay tuned for the next video. A God of truth and without iniquity, just and right is He. Deuteronomy 32:4.